What is up, all you individuals out there? It's me, full-time anime man, and I'm here with part 9 of What If Deku Had a Shadow Wolf. Now, before I get started with this, I need to tell you all right now, this episode will not be for underlings, minors, people who are still practically in diapers. Should not, repeating, not be listening to this. And let's just say we're going to be treading on some very 18 plus grounds. I'm talking about. If you know that beat, you know what's coming next. Anyway, let's go ahead and get into the story. This is What If Deku Had a Shadow Wolf, Part 9. I hope you all enjoy. Back at the corridors while the Norse gods were slumbering, Horanir and Vithar told everyone that Odin was dead, and that it was Koe-san who delivered the final blow. They would all be very sad and also mad at the same time. And as at that moment they all decided that it was time to bring her down and to show force. 3 days after the death of Odin, Koe-san and Jigoku were on their way to school, and Koe-san would think about the day that she was first in heat, where she would listen to Hati's advice, stating that in November, that is the year when all wolves are in mating season and are in heat. And it's the only time in their lives where the female wolves can get pregnant. So once November is over and she's no longer in heat, Koe-san will not be able to have kids. When the flashback came to an end, Jigoku notices that Koe-san was acting funny the past few days. Hey, Koe-san, you okay? You've been very distant these past few days. Koe-san, trying to make things seem okay, says, yeah, I'm fine. It's just, I'm still a little shooken up from what happened to Odin. She looks out the window and says, I still think of that moment when Odin's staff pierced his chest. Why is it that I feel so bad? Is it because he's a man who wanted to make things right? I don't know. Jigoku says, well, it's normal to feel remorse for someone, even with all the bad things that they've done. They work hard to make things right. You know what, Jigoku? The more I think about it, the more things start to line up. Well, what do you mean? Well, if it wasn't for Odin's plans, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have had these powers. I wouldn't have met you, and I wouldn't have met Tomura. I'm happy with my life because of Odin. But at the same time, I'm really sad that I never really met my first family. The family that I'm originally from. And my first name, Kilala. What does that name mean? Before Jigoku could say anything, their uncle, Korigiri, says that they have arrived. But before Koe-san got out of the car, she lightly smacked herself in the face, preparing herself for the day. Once she brings her hands down, she accidentally slaps her outer thigh, and with that, she lets out a loud moan of delight, but she immediately covers her mouth to stop it. Jigoku blushes a little bit with her eyes widen, staring at Koe-san. Sorry, I just surprised myself when I slapped my leg. We better get going. Thank you, Uncle Korigiri. She quickly gets out of the car, and she speed runs inside. She opens the door to Class 1A, and at the moment it was only the boys who were in class. Koe-san, while walking, loses her footing, and she stumbles into the corner of her desk, accidentally planting her pelvis into the corner of her desk, and immediately her body was drowning in ecstasy. She wanted to pull away, but her body wasn't listening to her, and she started grinding her privates against the corner of the desk. As the guys watch in bewilderment, their minds were like, is this really happening right now? As Koe-san's body continues to pleasure itself, she moans as with every thrust that she does. Koe-san was yelling inside, stop, you stupid body! The boys could not stop watching, and in a desperate attempt to stop, Koe-san then kicked the desk away from her. She starts to sweat profusely and breathing heavily with her face red. Her body was begging for more, and Koe-san then turned to the boys and says, "Sorry about that, boys. It's November." Jigoku then turns the corner to enter the room, and Koe-san asks why was she so far behind, to which Jigoku explained that she had to tie her shoe. What's going on with them? They look like they just seen a ghost." Koe-san says, "I think it was something better than a ghost," winking at the boys. Soon, everyone else shows up, and class gets started, and that day was gym. And while doing their warm-up exercises, Koe-san forgot to update her gym uniform. Over the time skip that they had to perform on her, she has grown bigger in certain places of her body. Put two and two together, you'll figure it out. Mina stares at her in disbelief, doing the pouty face out of jealousy. How is it that she's grown up so fast? Koe-san was basically in hell because the tightness of her clothes made the situation harder to deal with. Her clothes were squeezing her sensitive spots. It was just too much for her to bear. Koe-san was doing her best to conceal her raging lust, but her heavy breathing and her light moans caught the attention of everybody. Jigoku asked if she was okay, and she would say, "Yeah, I'm fine, just exhausted." They continue, and they were tasked to do sit-ups, and to help keep their feet grounded, Ida was tasked to keep Koe-san's feet down. Ida, being Ida, does what he is asked, and he does hold her feet down while she does sit-ups. Everyone begins, and everyone's doing okay, except for Ida, who feels a bit uncomfortable, and Koe-san started lightly moaning while looking at him. Ida starts to blush as he watches Koe-san, and drool starts leaking from one side of her mouth. And the thought of being physical with Koe-san, she then lets out a sexual moan of delight while saying, "Thank you, Ida. You're welcome, Koe-san." After that was done, their next task was wrestling, but they weren't allowed to use their quirks. Koe-san would go first, and her opponent would be Bakugo. Both of them were on the wrestling mat. Bakugo says, "Hey, don't expect me to go easy on you just because you're a girl." Koe-san, whose face turns red and has a malicious smile on her face, says, "That's good. You should be as merciless as possible. Do your best to beat me into submission, suplex me, put me in a chokehold, slap me, pull my hair, make me beg for mercy." She stops when she notices that she's letting her lust get the best of her. Bakugo stares in bewilderment along with everyone, and Bakugo asks for a new opponent, but he would be denied. He would beg and beg, but Aizawa said no. Koe-san says, "It's okay, Bakugo. At least I'll go easy on you." Their match begins, and almost immediately, Koe-san gets the upper hand on Bakugo. She was on top of him, pinning him to the ground, but with the resistance, Bakugo, by accident, plants his knee against Koe-san's pelvis, making her body roar with lust and desires. Koe-san moans loudly and tightens her grip on Bakugo's wrists, squeezing him tighter. He then screams loudly out of pain, and he yells, "Get off me!" as he plants his foot against Koe-san's stomach and kicks her off. Aizawa blows the whistle because that was a foul and no kicking is allowed. Their round 2 begins, but this time Bakugo is the first to attack. He gets her on the ground by grabbing her by the back of her legs and making her lay on her stomach as he curves her legs around her, reaching her back, basically folding her like a taco. While Bakugo has her in the submissive position, he thinks that he is about to be victorious, but he notices that Koe-san's face was red and she was smiling. "Wait, are you enjoying this?" Bakugo then loosens his grip, and Koe-san then takes her opportunity, and she slips past Bakugo, and she would jump at his face, wrapping her legs around his neck, choking him with her thighs. But by accident, she puts Bakugo's face firmly against her vagina, so she's smothering him as well as suffocating him. Bakugo tries to break free from this, but with his struggle, he only makes things worse. As he proceeds to try and free himself from Koe-san's thighs, he would slap her thighs and her butt as she would scream for him to smack her harder. Everyone watches in bewilderment. Mineta took out his phone and started recording. They both fall to the ground. Bakugo's movements were getting slower by the second that went by. Koe-san's grip gets tighter, and Aizawa finally decides to intervene, getting in between them. But it took almost everyone in class to separate the two. Bakugo was rattled. He was passed out on the ground, and Koe-san was desperately trying to get him back between her legs. Jigoku drags her away into the women's locker room. Koe-san, what has gotten into you? Koe-san, whose face was still red and breathing heavily, just having these desires, just wanting more to go on, looks into Jigoku's eyes and is thinking, she's kind of cute and actually wants to try her. She would then grab Jigoku by her head and she would start to tongue kiss her. Jigoku is bewildered of this. Like, Koe-san is kissing her intensely, and they both then fall to the ground. Slowly, Jigoku starts liking it, and she starts tongue wrestling her back. The two would roll on the ground, with Jigoku being on top to Koe-san being on top. This going on for about a few seconds, but then at the end, it was Koe-san who was on top, as they both looked into each other's eyes, just breathing heavily. She would then look down at Jigoku with lust, and she goes for her neck. She would start biting and sucking, licking on her neck with no mercy. Jigoku would start moaning as her body started feeling good all over just from this action. She wants her to suck and lick and do all that stuff harder on her neck, but that was a short-lived desire when Hati then appeared and got Koe-san off of Jigoku. Child, stop that. That's your sister. Koe-san then snaps out of it and she sees Jigoku, who was blushing and basically sweating just on the ground. She apologizes for her outburst, but Jigoku was too deep in thought to say anything. After all was said and done, Koe-san was in the locker room changing back into her UA uniform. When she spotted the sporting goods locker was unlocked, she approaches it, and inside was sporting equipment, such as baseballs, basketballs, and archery equipment. And an assortment equipment caught her attention. A baseball bat. It was your average wooden 23 inches long. Koe-san picks up the bat and ever so gently caresses it from top to bottom. She stares at it with such admiration as if she had found a long-lost relic. Koe-san takes the wooden bat from the closet and places it down in the center of the locker room benches. She continues to stare at it, and then she places one foot over the other side of the bench, and she hovers herself over the wooden bat, and she ever so slowly places herself on the skinny end of the bat, and she slowly starts grinding her pelvis against the hard wood. She starts to imagine Tomura and what he might be packing down below, and it is with that, her grinding gets more and more aggressive. With each thrust that she does, she starts to feel good all over, and she starts to get wet. After a few seconds of grinding, Koe-san starts to feel endorphins rushing throughout her entire body, and soon she feels the analgesic effect, and all of the muscles in her body starts to tighten up and pulsate. She stops and breathes heavily, and she wipes the sweat from her brow. She looks forward and sees the peephole she covered with duct tape a while back. It was leaking blood, for it was Mineta watching her. She smiles sadistically. Suddenly, Koe-san hears Jigoku calling her name. I'm coming. Whew. In more than one ways. Soon, school comes to an end, and Koe-san and Jigoku made it back home. Koe-san apologizes to Jigoku for kissing her, but Jigoku blushes and says, "It's okay, you just took me by surprise." Soon, they are greeted by Tomura, and then he kisses Koi-san, but Koi-san intensifies the kiss, wrapping her arms around his neck, but she snaps herself out of it, separating her from Tomura. Wow, are you just happy to see me? Yes, I'm sorry, it's just, I love you very much. I love you too, Koi-san. Anyway, I need to go to my room and do my homework. She goes to her room, and Tomura asks Jaigoku what's going on with her. Jaigoku rethinks about that moment Koi-san kissed her, but she didn't want to tell Tomura what happened. So she decided to say, I don't know what's going on with her. In Koi-san's room, she ponders on what to do the next time she loses control because of her sexual urges, and Hati suggests that she simply gets one out before leaving for school or finds a way to distract her. She thinks for a second, and Koi-san says, oh hey, what if I eat a piece of chocolate? I probably feel so sick that it might cancel out my sexual desires. Hati says, child, I do not like that idea at all. They think for a few more seconds, but then suddenly, emergency news came on to Koi-san's TV, and it shows that downtown was under attack by strange beings wearing strange clothes. This being Magni and Madi, they were just destroying things and hurting people. Seeing this upset Koi-san and Hati, and they both agree to take action. They step into the closet where the darkness is and use the darkness to enter the abyss. And they created a portal downtown where the trouble was happening. As Magni and Madi found themselves surrounded by knocked out pro heroes, they were all beaten and unconscious. Madi says, I can't believe how easy this is. You mortals think you really can stand against us, gods? It's about time that we put you back where you belong. He puts a foot on top of Mount Lady's head, underneath our feet. Koi-san appears from an alleyway and starts to ponder on where All Might is. Not that she needs him or anything. It's not like she cares. She just needs someone to distract the other god while she takes the other god to the abyss and deals with him there. Obviously. Koi-san then hears more sirens coming, which means that more people will eventually get hurt, so she decided that she needs to do something now. So she decides to take action. She uses shadow perspective. With this ability, she can throw her voice, kind of like how a ventriloquist can do. Koi-san uses this ability and places her voice in the ear of Madi, saying, Madi. Huh? Who said that? Madi, who are you talking to? I could have sworn I heard someone call my name. He hears it again. Madi, I'm over here. Oh, it's that wolf bitch. Really? Where? Come out here right now, they demand her. She then speaks in Magni's ear. I'm over here. Both of the men then exclaim, she's over there, while running in opposite directions. Madi runs in the actual direction, while Magni runs in the direction where she is not. He then turns the corner, and she sees her. She was smiling, and Magni charges in at her while yelling, oh, you're gonna pay for what you did to Odin. Koi-san was confused. What does he mean by that? I mean, sure, she had a hand in Odin's death, but she wasn't the one who delivered the killing blow. It was his own brother and his own son. But she brushes it off and focuses, and she opens a portal to the abyss underneath his path. He falls through and is in complete darkness. Koi-san stands there in front of him and says, of all the people I've been dying to get my hands on, it's you, Magni. The two then engage in a fight, and though Magni was a great fighter, and Koi-san had a few lucky punches in, Koi-san did put up a good fight. Koi-san says, while she's still dodging, Wow, Magni. What's going on with you today? Your performance seems very slow. Shut up! He yells. He then tries to slam his fist on top of her, but she dodges. Then Koisan forms a shadow sword and she cuts Magni, leaving a deep gash in his stomach area. He screams loudly, but then Koisan cut off one of his hands. He falls to his knees while holding on to his dismembered body part. He then lays on his back, screaming while wailing around, blood splooging out all over the place, even some getting on Koisan's face. Koisan then basks in the glory of her opponent wallowing on the ground. She slowly starts walking towards him while swinging her sword around. She maniacally licks her lips, then says, "How does it feel to be on the other end of this? Remember what you and the other gods did to me?" Now, injured, I spared him because I needed him to send a message. But you, your brother, and Soul doesn't seem to get the message. You both deserve a fate worse than death. She reaches out to take his immortality and his power crystal, but then she thinks, wait, now that I have this knowledge on how to take their immortality and their power crystal, I might have the upper hand on them. I want them to know how ready, willing, and able I am to do whatever it takes to stop them, that it might strike a little bit more fear into their hearts now that I have this knowledge. And with that, Koisan gets an idea that would be a fate worse than death, and might send a stronger message to stay away from her friends and family. Which is not killing him at all. She smiles and says, "No, no. I got something way better than that. Magni, sweetie, I need you to deliver one final message. And if they don't get it, then they're all going to suffer the same fate that you're going to get then." With a swing of her blade, she then swings it at Magni, and we fade to black, and then reappear back into the real world, with Maudie walking around looking for his brother. He calls his name, but then suddenly a portal appears in front of him, and something rolls from it. He looks down at this thing. It had golden hair, and it was very fuzzy. He then reaches down to pick it up and investigate it even deeper, but then suddenly he hears moans of pain coming from that thing that was on the ground. He then rolled it over and it revealed that it was Magni's head, still alive. Maudie screamed to the sky, "Brother, what happened to you?" He then looks forward at the portal, and there stood Koisan with a smile on her face, and she says, "Next time you even think about attacking a city or innocent people, my friends or family, I want you to remember this." She points to the head, and she disappears into the abyss and back home. But as she's about to take a breath in from getting her frustration out, her body starts raging with sexual desires again. "Hati, we need to find a solution to keep me from having another sexual outburst." Hati says, "I'm not very sure, child. Why don't you try lemonade without sugar or something?" Koisan thinks for a second. That actually might be a good idea. Getting a lemon from the fridge, she tries it and it seems to have worked. Let's hope it could stay that way until the end of November. But even with the lemonade, sometimes her sexual desires do get the best of her. But at least she kept it at a minimum. But one day, she ran out of lemonade during school, and in the middle of class, she can already feel her body drowning in lust and desires. While listening to Aizawa, Koisan was distracted by her horniness. She found herself massaging one of her upper thighs, and she stares at her pencil and places it in her mouth in a suggestive manner. Jigoku sees this, and she blushes. and it made her unexplainably aroused. Without saying anything, Koi-san then got out of her desk and she walked out of the room. Aizawa calls her name, but she doesn't respond. She just leaves. Jigoku gives an excuse, saying that she's probably having another PTSD moment and just needs some space, and she volunteers to go after her to make sure that she doesn't hurt herself. She follows her into the ladies' changing room. Jigoku slowly sneaks in and she hears her moaning loudly, and she peeks her head around the corner and she sees Koi-san pleasuring herself with a baseball bat. Jigoku could not stop watching as Koi-san continues to aggressively grind against the hard wood. She looks closer and sees her wetness, and seeing this gets Jigoku unexplainably aroused as she finds herself masturbating. Jigoku didn't notice this, but she got up from her hiding spot and she walked towards Koi-san. As she touched her back, it caught her attention and she turned around fast. The two looked at each other. Their faces were red. Koi-san then jumped up, causing both of them to fall to the ground. Koi-san on top of her, both of them breathing heavily at each other. Jigoku then whispered, "Take me now." Koi-san then kissed her. Jigoku then started rubbing her hands against Koi-san's back. She moans with delight, and by accident, Jigoku adjusted her knee into Koi-san's pelvis, and she starts grinding against her knee. It only took a few seconds before Koi-san reached her limits and she exploded on Jigoku's knee. Koi-san then screamed loudly with delight, and she passes out from exhaustion, and Jigoku breathes heavily. From the people, Mineta was watching everything that had happened between Koi-san and Jigoku and even took a few photos. Suddenly, Denki appeared from behind him and said, "What are you doing?" He looks at his phone and he sees Koi-san and Jigoku. Denki then sighs and he shocks Mineta's phone, erasing everything on it. Mineta says, "What the hell, man?" Denki says, "Look, man, you have to leave that girl alone. Like, seriously, man, just leave them alone. Dude, you've been different ever since the day of the beach. What has gotten into you?" "Listen, Mineta, listen closely. On the day at the beach, while we were gawking at the girls, I heard Koi-san explain her backstory, and I heard that her father molested her." Her father, Mineta, the one man that she is supposed to trust, hurt her, and the last thing that she needs right now is two creeps gawking at her, spying on her through a peephole, and stuff like that. At that moment, Mineta began to feel guilt of how he's been treating Koi-san, or any of the other girls in Class 1A. For all he knows, they could have had hard lives just because they were women. He picked up his phone, wanting to delete the photos and videos, but Denki told him that he already did that and his phone should be up and running in just a few hours. Back in the girls' changing room, Jigoku was still on the ground, and she was feeling needs that she didn't get from Koi-san. "Oh, come on. I didn't even get to do anything yet." Suddenly, Hati appears, and she snarls and growls at Jigoku, and she picks Koi-san up off of her. What? Why are you mad at me?" Hati says, "You should be ashamed of yourself, Jigoku, for trying to take advantage of Koi-san. But I just, no excuses. We all know how you feel about her. We all saw it in the mist of truth. It's called the mist of truths. We saw and we heard everything that you said while she was in the coma. And if you refuse to just admit your feelings for her and you want something, quote unquote, like this from her, and you take advantage of her when she's this vulnerable, then you should be ashamed of yourself. And you better leave Koi-san alone. Otherwise, you're going to have to deal with me." She takes Koi-san and leaves Jigoku. She is left alone with her thoughts, and it is with that she starts crying, hugging her knees to her chest. We transition to the nurse's office where Koi-san is just woken up, but she doesn't remember much of what happened. But Hati just tells her that she passed out. She doesn't want to tell her the truth because she fears that it might frail the relationship between Jigoku and her. School had just came to an end, and while on the ride home, Koe-san had tried to engage with Jigoku, but she wouldn't even look at her, let alone talk. In Koe-san's mind, she thought that Jigoku was mad at her or something. It made her sad, which made the entire ride home very awkward. When the car had parked, Jigoku exited the car, and then she speed walked to the front door and ran to her room, laying her head into her pillow and crying. Koe-san walks into the house and sits down in the living room, for she was still very sad about the ride home. So sad that her sexual drive didn't even bother her at that moment. "What did I do wrong?" asked Koe-san. "You did absolutely nothing wrong, child," said Hati. "Jigoku is simply having one of her days. One that is very well deserved." What did you say? Nothing. You know, Hati, I've been thinking a lot lately about Odin. Well, what is it? Remember when he blessed me with half of his knowledge? Almost all that he knows, the gods knows. I think I think I know how to transfigure it back to my original form. Really. Yeah. It's almost like enlightenment, the understanding of the force of the universe and the true form of reality. She then raises her dominant hand up, and mysteriously it turns that into a paw. No opposable thumbs, just stumps of flesh and claws and black fur. Koe-san breathes heavily. Whoa, this feeling, this feels good. This feeling of relief. Should I go all the way? It's up to you, child. You are the one with the ability. Koe-san was tempted to let it go, and she does. Her entire body turned. Her face slowly stretched out. Her fur started growing from all parts of her body, and her clothes started to stretch out and rip. Then, her transformation was complete. Koe-san had felt something she had never felt before. Her chest felt like a lot of pressure was lifted off of it. Like she could breathe normally for the first time in her life. In the light of the sun, her black fur shined in its glare. She does a dog-like stretch as to stretch out her new formed muscles. She looked at her reflection in the window where the sun shined. I can't believe it. This is actually me. Yes, child. And need I say, you look beautiful. Koe-san could not stop staring at herself, admiring of what she is seeing, until her hypnosis was distracted when the front door opened. It was Tomura. Hey, I'm home. Koe-san started freaking out and she tries to change back, but she couldn't focus. Instead, she was like, I gotta hide. Gotta hide. Tomura then turns the corner and sees nothing. But he looks down and he sees Koe-san's torn clothes. He picks up the discarded clothes and yells Koe-san's name. She then says, yeah? While hiding behind a couch. Oh. I thought something had happened to you. Hey, why are you hiding behind the couch? Don't come any closer! Okay, why? What's wrong? Oh, it's just, I'm wearing a face mask, and I don't want you to see me like this. Okay, why are your clothes torn up? Well, I was removing the face mask, and and you know how much of a pain in the butt that they could be to remove. It really hurts, and I may have gotten a little bit carried away when taking it off. I'm still trying to take it off. Oh, well, can I do anything to help you? Yeah, you could just, bring me some new clothes, and then when you bring me the new clothes, you could just leave the room. Sure. He turns around, but before he leaves, he says, "Hey, Koi-san, what? I just want to say that you don't need to wear makeup or do anything with your face to make yourself look better. Because no matter what you are, you're always beautiful." Koi-san's heart is at a flutter at that moment. He leaves the room and Koi-san is left with her thoughts. She's not sure what it is, but her sexual tendencies didn't get to her while Tomura was around. A few hours had passed. It was 12 a.m., December 1st. The moon was just shining through Koi-san's bedroom window. Koi-san lays in her bed, back in her halfling form, cuddling a body-sized pillow closely to her chest. Tomura flooding her mind at that moment. From his black flowing hair, to his caring and kind heart, to his rock-hard abs. She shivers just from the thought of it. She then sits up and says, "I want him. Like, right now. But I need to know if he can accept the real me." She changes into more comfortable clothing, which is a nightgown, and says, "Hati, now that mating season is over, I can't have kids anymore?" "Yes, child. I understand. Anyway, I need you to wait here." "Very well, child." Koi-san walks through the house towards Tomura's room. Her heart was racing the closer that she got to his room. Soon, she reaches the door, and the palm of her hands were sweating. She then takes a deep breath, and she knocks. "Who is it?" asked Tomura. "It's Koi-san." "Oh, come on in." The door opens, and Tomura's eyes are met with Koi-san's body, being shown off by the tightness of her nightgown. What can I do for you, Koi-san?" I need to talk to you alone." What do you mean? We are alone." She then points to her head, and Tomura remembers, saying, "Oh, right. Hey, Skull, do you mind leaving us?" "Okay." Skull then appears, with his body showing off the same orangey-red flare as the sun as he leaves the room. Koi-san then closes the door without locking it. "What do you want to talk about, Koi-san?" "Listen, Tomura. You remember when we were exploring the 9 realms, and I told you about who and what I really am?" "Yeah, and I still love you no matter what." Koi-san then takes in a deep breath, and she turns off all the lights. "What are you doing?" "Tomura, I need to show you something. I need to know that you can accept me for what I really am." She then turns around and drops her nightgown, and even in the darkness of the room, Tomura was still able to make out her naked body figure. But suddenly, he sees her body change. She gets down on all fours and first starts engulfing her body. The next thing that Tomura sees is this 4-legged wolf creature walking right towards him. She lightly growls, looking deep into Tomura's eyes, and as she gets closer, he backs up. She then pounces on top of him, making both of them land on his bed as she's on top. She looks even deeper into his eyes as she growls and says, "Tell me, Tomura, would you still want me, even if the real me is this?" Her growls grow louder, but then, suddenly, she felt Tomura's hand touching one side of her face, and Tomura says, "Yes, because it's you." And Koi-san is just struck, and she then jumps off of Tomura and then back to the floor. Her body is just flooding with emotions. Tomura stands up from his bed and says, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" Koe-san looks at Tomura, and she lunges right at him, turning back into her human form. She then aggressively starts kissing him as she wraps her arms and legs around his torso. Tomura, being a bit surprised by this, but is immediately taken in by the kiss and starts kissing her back. As the two continue their kiss, they then take the aggressiveness around Tomura's room, knocking into a few of his belongings and his drawers and desk. Koe-san would then let out a moan of delight as Tomura would start rubbing her bare body from her back to her thighs. He then picks Koe-san up and he throws her onto the bed as he proceeds to take off all of his clothes. We fade to black. From outside Koe-san's bedroom, Jigoku knocks at the door ready to admit her feelings once and for all. Only, except for Koe-san responding, it was hot tea. Who is it? Hot tea? Is Koe-san in there? No, she's in Tomura's room. What? She turns around and she starts speed walking towards Tomura's bedroom. But while on the way there, her mind started racing. She can't just disturb them if they're engaging, but I can't stand these feelings anymore. And with that, she charges at the door and it opens. And Koe-san was just on top of Tomura just as they were about to engage, but Jigoku entered, saying, "Wait, Koe-san!" Both of them were spooked by her entrance without even knocking, and they both shouted Jigoku's name out of fright. "Jigoku? Koe-san, I love you. There, I said it." She starts to tear up, falling to her knees. "I'm sorry. I've been meaning to tell you this for a long time, but I was just so scared of rejection, but I beg of you, please accept my love, because if you don't, then I won't know what to do with myself." Koe-san and Tomura then look at each other, and Koe-san says, "Give me 1 minute." She then gets out of bed and to Jigoku, hugging her, and says, "Jigoku, it's okay. I'm not going to reject you. Because I love you too. I just wanted you to express yourself first because you tend to bottle up all your emotions. And in some way, I needed you to set yourself free, and now you have." Jigoku wipes away her tears and says, "So, where do we go from here?" Koe-san looks to Tomura and then back at Jigoku and says, "Well, you could join us in bed." Both her and Tomura then blush out of embarrassment, both of them stumbling to find words, but Koe-san says, "Well, I'll take that as a yes." She then takes Jigoku by her hands and takes her to the bed, and Koe-san says, "Hey, Tomura, why don't you help me get Jigoku a little more comfortable?" Okay. Koe-san would kiss Jigoku and Tomura would massage her as he restarts removing pieces of her clothes. And this is where I'm going to have to skip it, but I will say this. Tomura, Jigoku, and Koe-san, let's just say they all started from the bottom, and then they finished on top. Let's just say that. Okay, maybe I can go just a little bit further with this, but I might have to do some censoring. From this part, Koe-san will be narrating the rest of the perspective. After me and Jigoku had our fun, I had my sights fully set on Tomura, who watched us the entire time. I felt his girthy, stubby filling my wound. With each passing thrust, it got more and more easier to accept him into my body. After a few minutes, I realized that his thrusts were becoming more and more violent, and it's at that moment I realized that he is close to which is ironic because I was close as well. I dug so deep into the moment that I wrapped my arms and legs around his torso so that he couldn't pull away. And in the last moment, we both at the same time, as we both felt our muscles pulsating and our grip on each other's tighten. It was a wonderful 30 seconds of pleasure. When all was said and done, Koi-san found herself falling asleep in the arms of her lovers underneath the shining moonlight. It's the next day. Koi-san wakes up with a headache. Her ears were ringing, and her stomach was twisting and cramping, rumbling. And it was at that moment Koi-san realizes that she was going to throw up. She quickly gets out of bed and ushered towards the nearest bathroom. But in doing so, she woke up Tomura and Jigoku. She makes it to the bathroom and throws up into the toilet, and after a few seconds, she was able to breathe for a few seconds, then having to finish expelling into the toilet. A knock at the door. It's Tomura. Hey, Koi-san, are you okay? She crack opens the door. Yeah, I'm fine. I just felt a little sick, but I'm okay now. Okay, well, can I get you anything? Yeah, actually, can you do me a favor and make me breakfast? I'm so hungry. It's not funny. Like I could eat a horse, literally. Okay. Well, I'll let you know when it's done. All right. Thanks, Tomer. After a minute, she then walked back to her room where she was greeted by Hati. Hello, child. How did it go? Well, I had some issues waking up where I had to rush to the bathroom and throw up. But, I'm okay now. Hati says, hang on, what? You did what? I threw up. Hang on. Hati would start sniffing around Koi-san. Hati, what's going on? Oh, no. This is not good for you, child. What do you mean? Koi-san, you're pregnant. And this is where I'm going to have to leave the story. Again, if you're listening to this part, I am going to miss you guys so much. It's been a pleasure making these stories, but I'm pretty sure YouTube is going to terminate my channel after hearing this. So anyway, hope you all have a nice day. If you made it to the end of this video, consider yourselves extra #blessed, and while you're at it, just don't count this as one of your sins. I already know I'm going to hell. You all have a nice day, and goodbye.